It was a rainy evening in a small town just on the edge of the city. Clouds hung heavy. The streetlights flickered in the mist, and people hurried home, not just to escape the rain, but as if trying to outrun something they couldn't name. The sound of raindrops tapping against window panes was interrupted only by the occasional roll of thunder, and in the corner of a quiet bus stop sat a teenage boy named Arman. He was quiet, headphones in, hoodie up, eyes watching the foggy street ahead. He had just finished a long shift at the bookstore he worked at after school, his backpack half open with a few worn-out paperbacks peeking out. Arman didn't usually take this route, but tonight something told him to get on this particular bus. As the old city bus pulled up, the doors opened with a mechanical hiss, and Arman stepped in. It was nearly empty, just a few tired faces, a man snoring in the back, and an older woman with a sharp gaze sitting up front. He slid into a seat near the middle, letting out a sigh, hoping to get home before the rain got worse. But just as the bus started moving, a woman stepped on. A pregnant woman soaking wet, her arms cradling her stomach protectively, searching for a place to sit. Without a second thought, Arman stood up and offered her his seat. She hesitated, for a second, looking at him. Really looking at him. She was older than him, clearly from a different part of town, and didn't seem like someone he'd ever crossed paths with. But something in her eyes was soft. She nodded, smiled faintly, and took the seat with a whispered thank you. Arman moved to stand by the pole nearby, gripping it as the bus jolted forward. A few minutes passed in silence before the woman reached into her purse and took out a small folded note. She glanced up at Arman, then handed it to him discreetly. "Read this later," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the engine. Confused but curious, he nodded and tucked it into his jacket pocket without a word. Outside, the rain was getting heavier. The bus turned down a narrower road, one lined with old houses, many of them boarded up, some half collapsed. Arman noticed the driver glancing nervously in the rearview mirror, as if checking something behind them that wasn't quite right. The other passengers had grown unusually quiet, too. Something about the air on the bus shifted. It felt heavier, colder. The kind of silence that makes you think you're not alone, even if you can't see anyone else. Arman's eyes fell on a carved pumpkin sitting in the window of one of the crumbling houses they passed. Its smile was too wide, its eyes too deep, and for a moment he swore it was watching him. He blinked, shook his head. Probably just tired, probably just the shadows playing tricks. But then he saw another, and another. Every house on that street had one, each more twisted and strange than the last. Some had candles inside, their flames flickering wildly despite there being no wind. The bus creaked to a stop, but no one got on. The doors opened, letting in a gust of freezing air. And then far in the back of the bus, that snoring man suddenly jolted awake, sitting upright with eyes wide open. He stared straight ahead, not blinking, not moving. The woman Arman had given his seat to gripped her belly tighter, her face pale. Arman glanced around. Nobody else seemed to notice what was happening, or maybe they just didn't want to. He remembered the note in his pocket and quietly unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. The words read, "You did a good thing, but be careful. This bus isn't going where you think it is." His heart skipped a beat. Before he could react, the lights inside the bus flickered. Once, twice, then off completely. The bus came to a halt in front of a house that looked familiar. Too familiar. It was his house, but something was wrong. The front door was wide open, swinging slowly in the wind, and inside a dim orange glow flickered, like candlelight, or fire. The bus driver turned around, face pale, and said quietly, "Welcome home." But Arman hadn't told the driver his address. No one had, and the woman in the seat he gave up, she was gone. Just vanished. No trace of her at all. The only thing left behind was a smear of wet footprints leading toward the back of the bus, and that's when he heard it. The slow, scraping sound of something, or someone, crawling down the aisle behind him. The bus doors slammed shut, and the engine didn't start again. To be continued. Arman stood frozen, his fingers tightening around the cold metal pole as the scraping sound inched closer. The bus was still cloaked in darkness, except for faint pulsing orange light leaking in through the windows from the jack-o'-lanterns outside. His breath caught in his throat. The only thing louder than the silence was the pounding of his heart. He wanted to turn around, to see what was crawling down the aisle, but something deep inside him whispered not to. His instincts screamed that whatever it was, whatever had entered the bus when no one was looking, was not human. He slowly stepped forward, trying not to make a sound. His backpack brushed against the seat beside him, and it felt like an explosion in the quiet. The lights flickered for half a second, and in that flash he thought he saw something low to the ground. Long limbs, too many fingers, skin that didn't look quite real. But by the time the light disappeared, the aisle behind him was empty again. At least it looked that way. Armand moved toward the front of the bus where the driver had been. "Sir?" he called out, voice shaking. "What's going on?" But the driver didn't answer. He was staring ahead, hands locked on the steering wheel, eyes wide open but completely still, like he was frozen in place or under some kind of trance. Armand waved his hand in front of his face. Nothing. No blink, no reaction. The man's lips moved ever so slightly, but no sound came out. It was like he was mouthing something silently on a loop. Armand leaned in closer and made out the words, "Don't get off the bus, don't go inside, don't welcome it in." Armand backed away quickly, stomach churning. He looked outside again. His house. Still there, still waiting. But now, something was different. The light inside was no longer flickering. It was steady, bright. And even though the storm raged outside, not a single raindrop touched the ground in front of the house. It was as if the rain was being pushed back by something unnatural. He pulled his phone out, desperate to call someone, anyone. But there was no signal, no bars. The screen flickered with static and then went black, as if drained of power. That's when he heard it again, the crawling. This time, it wasn't just behind him. It was coming from under the seats, scratching, clawing, like nails dragging across metal. He turned slowly, heart hammering in his chest, and then he saw it. Just for a second, something slipping beneath the seats too fast to catch clearly, but long and pale, like a limb made of smoke and ash. It vanished just as quickly, but not before he saw it drag something small behind it. Armand's eyes scanned the bus, realizing someone was missing, the woman with the sharp eyes from earlier. Gone, just like the pregnant woman. His mind raced. Who were they? Were they even real? What was this bus? He remembered the note again, the one the pregnant woman had given him. "You did a good thing, but be careful. This bus isn't going where you think it is." The words echoed in his head, like a warning. He needed answers. And suddenly, a memory came back to him. A story he'd overheard once while shelving horror books at the store. An old man talking to someone near the checkout counter, whispering about a cursed bus route that only appeared during heavy rain. A bus that promised to take you home, but didn't mean your real home. The man said people who got on sometimes never got off. Or worse, they got off, but not in their own world. Armand had laughed it off back then, thought it was just a creepy tale meant to scare kids. But now he wasn't so sure. He turned back to the door, tried pressing the emergency button. Nothing. He banged on the glass, but it didn't even make a sound. The bus was sealed tight, and then the lights flickered again, this time staying on for longer. The inside of the bus looked different now. The seats were old, torn in places, the walls were rusted, and black mold crept up in the corners. It was like the bus had aged 100 years in seconds. The smell of damp wood and rot filled the air. Something dripped from the ceiling. Armand stepped back, wiping a drop from his arm. It was thick, red. Not water. He turned and saw the mirror above the driver's seat. For the first time, he noticed it wasn't reflecting the bus. It was reflecting something else entirely, what looked like a long, narrow hallway lined with doors. At the far end was a figure, tall, thin, wearing a pumpkin for a head. Its grin stretched from cheek to cheek and flames danced in its hollow eyes. It raised a hand slowly and pointed straight at Armand through the mirror. He stumbled back, eyes wide. But when he turned to look behind him, the hallway wasn't there, only the bus aisle. The mirror, though, it still showed that hallway. Still showed the pumpkin-headed figure. And now it was closer, closer than before. Armand turned away, forcing himself to breathe. He needed to think. He needed to survive whatever this was. He tried to remember everything from that old bookstore conversation. The man had said something else, something strange. That the bus tests you. It chooses people based on the life they've lived. Some get a chance to escape, if they can figure out what the bus is really after. But most, they either vanish or become part of it. Suddenly, a sound came from the back again. This time, not crawling. Footsteps, slow, heavy, measured. Armand ducked low, hiding behind a seat, holding his breath. The footsteps stopped a few rows away. He could hear breathing, now not his own, and then a whisper. Not from behind him, not even in his ears. It was inside his head. It's not the house that's haunted, Armand. It's you. He slapped his hands over his ears, trying to block it out, but the voice only grew louder. Images flooded his mind, of things he hadn't thought about in years. The night his brother disappeared, the fight they had before it happened, the nightmares he used to have afterward, of someone or something standing in the corner of his room, wearing a cracked pumpkin mask, whispering his name. He thought he'd imagined it all, but now he wasn't so sure. The bus began to move, again, but it wasn't driving forward. It was reversing, back down the street, past the twisted houses, past the glowing pumpkins. And as it moved, Armand saw that each house they passed now had a figure standing in the window, watching. All of them wearing the same pumpkin face, waiting. He crouched lower, praying the ride would end, but deep down he knew it had only just begun.